Welcome to Doug the Fantastic Cow's story time. I will be telling some of the stories that have happened during my time cowing. Now, let's begin. The sun was beginning to set as I wrapped up a day of hiking in the lush greenery of Silverwood campsite. The serene sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves were a welcome distraction from the chaotic city life I had temporarily left behind. I set up my tent, lit a small campfire and laid back, watching the stars twinkle to life in the velvety sky. The crackle of the fire and the scent of roasted marshmallows created a cozy atmosphere, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Had I wandered too far from the beaten path earlier? As I peeked between the trees, the shadows danced fitfully, and for a brief moment, I thought I spotted a figure looming at the edge of the forest. I dismissed it as paranoia. Later that night, just as I was drifting off to sleep, a loud rustle outside jolted me awake. My heart raced as I unzipped the tent and peeked out, gripping the flashlight tightly. That's when I saw it. A massive bear, its coat sleek and glistening in the moonlight, lumbering through the underbrush toward my campsite. Panic surged through me. I scrambled to think of a plan. I remembered the cooking supplies strewn about. Falling asleep with the smell of roasted marshmallows and grilled meat lingering in the air wasn't the smartest idea. I frantically scoured my gear, searching for something, anything, to defend myself. My eyes landed on a large canister of bear spray, a gift from my overcautious friend who insisted it would keep me safe. The bear drew nearer, unfazed by the light of my flashlight. It sniffed the air and seemed drawn to my little fire. Mustering all my courage, I took aim with the bear spray, my hands trembling. I had no clue if it would work, but desperation clawed at me. As the bear reared up on its hind legs, I unleashed a torrent of bear spray into the air. The bear roared, confused, and staggered back, pawing at its eyes. I seized the opportunity, darting back into the tent and securing the zipper with shaky fingers. My heart pounded like a drum in my ears as I listened to the muffled sounds outside, thrashing and growling. Minutes felt like hours as the chaos subsided. I kept expecting the bear to tear through the tent, but suddenly the noise stopped. Cautiously, I unzipped the tent and peeked out. To my surprise, the bear was sprawled out, motionless on the ground, overcome by the spray. Seizing the moment, I grabbed my things and didn't look back. I hopped into my car, adrenaline fueling my escape. As I sped down the winding roads, I felt an odd mix of exhilaration and fear. How could one night change so quickly? Hours later, when I finally pulled into my driveway, the weight of the day crashed on me. I caught my breath, grateful to be back in the safety of my home. But as I stepped out of the car, something caught my eye. A familiar silhouette at the edge of my yard. There it stood. The same huge bear, now alert and ominous. It must have followed me. I froze, heart racing once more, knowing I was out of bear spray and options. My mind raced through ridiculous alternatives, inviting it for dinner, a brief discussion about boundaries, but then a sudden idea popped into my head. I dashed into the garage and grabbed a bag of leftover trail mix. I had read somewhere that bears were more inclined to move on if offered food that didn't seem threatening. Maybe I could barter with this creature for my afternoon. With the bag of trail mix clutched tightly in my hands, I took a step toward the bear, lightly rattling the bag. It perked up, sniffing the air curiously. I kneeled down, opening the bag to show it the bounty within. To my surprise, the bear took a cautious step forward, then another. Slowly, I tossed a handful of the mix, and it eagerly grabbed it with its massive paws. Encouraged, I repeated the motion, creating a small trail leading away from my house. The bear munched happily as I watched, heart still racing, but not with fear anymore. After a few more generous handfuls, the bear seemed much more interested in the trail mix than me. Cautiously, it turned and followed the trail I had made, lumbering back toward the trees with an air of contentment. Relieved, I waved goodbye, silently wishing it wouldn't return. This time, I retreated into my house, chuckling at the absurdity of the entire day. Tomorrow, I would tell my friends about my wild adventure. For now, I was grateful my house hadn't become an impromptu bear den. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew this wouldn't be the last I'd heard of my bear friend. If you thought the last story about the bear was frightening, then wait until you hear this one. The sun sparkled on the azure waves as our cruise ship, the Ocean Queen, glided smoothly through the Caribbean. I leaned over the railing, breathing in the salty air, the sun warming my face. Everything was perfect. The gentle sway of the ship, the laughter of fellow passengers, and the promise of adventures ahead filled my heart with joy. As we neared a secluded cove, I decided to explore the deck. I had heard rumors of a shark sighting nearby, and as an overly cautious person, I had insisted on bringing a crowbar in case I needed to secure my belongings or defend myself against any unexpected hazards. I found it amusing at the time, a precaution that seemed unnecessary on a cruise, but one that urged me to feel prepared. Moments later, while drinking in the vibrant mix of sun and sea, I took a step back to avoid a trio of excited children racing past me. But my foot found only empty air. The ship pitched gently, and I stumbled, my arms flailing as I grasped for something, anything. I fell over the edge, the wind screaming past me as I plunged into the cool depths of the ocean. Panic gripped me as the water enveloped me, dragging me down into its depths. The world above faded into a pale light, and I kicked my legs, propelling myself upward. Just as I breached the surface, coughing out a mouthful of seawater, I spotted the ship in the distance, a floating fortress I had to reach. But then came a fin, dark, slicing through the waves. My heart raced as adrenaline coursed through me. The unmistakable arch of a shark's dorsal fin emerged, followed by another. I had heard enough stories to know these waters were known for their predators. It was like a scene from a horror movie. I was the unwitting victim. With an urgent determination, I scrambled to stay afloat, spotting my crowbar floating still strapped to my backpack. My fingers grasped the handle, and I pulled it free, just as the first shark lunged towards me, jaws open wide. "Stay back!" I yelled, though I knew it wouldn't understand. The shark circled, eyes cold and calculating. I raised the crowbar, unsure if it would intimidate or provoke it further. The second shark followed suit, swimming in a calculated, dizzying approach, both closing in on me. My breath quickened as terror surged through my veins, but I steadied my grip on the crowbar. I thought of the stories my grandfather had told me about how to fend off sharks. I remembered he said, "They often challenged you. Sometimes showing courage can turn the tide." With the determination of a warrior, I swung the crowbar at the first shark just as it lunged again. The metal met flesh with a solid thud, and the beast recoiled, at least momentarily startled. The water churned around us as the creature reeled and swam away in confusion. But I wasn't out of trouble yet. The second shark, undeterred by the commotion, approached from below and surged upward, teeth bared. With every ounce of strength I possessed, I struck again, this time aiming for its snout. It swerved just in time, but the sheer force knocked it off balance, and it swam away in an erratic loop. I gasped for air, feeling my muscles burn and my mind racing to formulate a plan. I had to get back to the ship. It felt like 1,000 lifetimes away. I took strokes toward it, hoping against hope that the sharks would lose interest. The first shark circled again, fatigue showing in its movements. I raised my crowbar, not out of anger, but in a show of resilience. I was not just prey, I was a survivor. Both sharks edged closer, curious, perhaps surprised that I was still fighting back. I took one last deep breath and dived below, hoping to evade them for a moment. I could see the shadows above me. My heart thundered like a drum. Just as I was about to pivot and catch my breath, I swung the crowbar blindly, but it missed its target. Suddenly, I felt a powerful force pull me upward. I broke the surface again, gasping for air. Instantly, I spotted the lifebuoy the crew had tossed my way. With newfound energy, I surged towards it, clinging tightly as I bobbed in the waves. To my immense relief, I heard the voices of the crew yelling to me. They had seen my struggle, and they didn't intend to let me drown. Grasping the buoy, they pulled me from the water, the taste of salt and fear mixing on my lips. As I was hoisted aboard the ship, panting and shaking, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. I had fought with everything I had against the darkness of fear, and I had survived. The crew wrapped me in towels and rushed me to dry land. Rehabilitation took a few minutes of deep breaths and sips of water, but I knew I would carry this story with me forever. A bizarre chapter in my life where I battled the ocean's fiercest predators with a crowbar in hand. If you enjoyed the stories from this wise old cow, then make sure to subscribe, and I will see you again once I recount some more of the stories from my notebook.